ReZero, Side Story, Librarian Beatrice's Reluctant Promise Chapter 1.
Holding her breath and opening the door, she checked both sides of the hallway. Straining her ears, she looked for sounds. She couldn't sense anyone approaching. Lightly pumping her fist while saying, "Okay," the young girl ran out as she stepped onto the red carpet. While the soft carpet did mitigate some of the sound, it couldn't also erase the young girl's uncertainty. Currently, the young girl felt not only that her footsteps were an obstacle, but that her breathing itself was one. The rows of doors, the long way until the end of the hallway, she was wary of every little thing in this long passage. As she looked for a place to hide, boo, HK, right after her gaze wandered while looking for a place to hide, a boy jumped out from the shadow of a vase in front of her. This child spread his hands to the sides of his face and opened his mouth wide while snot dripped from his nose. Immediately she ground her molars, and suppressed the strength of the mana she was about to throw out. She nearly blew away the young boy right in front of her eyes. The girl was relieved by her own self-control and the boy's dumb luck, and then, humph, I suppose, Jen, her palm, having given up on releasing mana, instead was used to slap the side of the boy's face as he made a silly expression. Watching the boy roll after giving a short scream, the girl pulled on her drills with a finger. Humph. That's what you get for surprising me, in fact. This isn't a joke, I suppose. Found her, you're right. She's there. Lucas got done in, but, even if Lucas got done in, we have Lucas the second and the third, Ukuk. In fact, the moment she celebrated her victory, a boisterous detached force came running from the other side of the hallway. Clicking her tongue at those voices, the girl touched the nearest door, and tried to cross the world by habit when, from just this, I cannot not admit defeat, I suppose. Withdrawing her hand, the girl shook her head, then ran to the other side of the hallway. She stepped on the belly of the boy she slapped on the way, making him raise a shameful voice. Ahi, go now, catch here. Go now, get here. Go now, strip here. As she heard the voices of the companions of the boy she stepped on coming from the rear, the girl lined out a map of the mansion in her brain. Then, she frowned towards the children chasing her. I absolutely will not bend to your whims. In fact, her determination bleeding into her voice, the girl Beatrice held onto her skirt as she ran with all her might.
ReZero, Side Story, Librarian Beatrice's Reluctant Promise Chapter 2.
Hey Biko, isn't your body going to break if you spend all your time locked up in here? Eyeing the great number of books crammed into the bookshelves, Subaru voiced such a question while sitting on the floor. This was a room shrouded by an aged and grandiose atmosphere. This spacious room had no windows, and the only source of light were magic lamps littered around the inside of the room. The white stones inside the glass cases fulfilled their role of illuminating dazzlingly and brightly. However, even those lights couldn't fully illuminate this cramped room lined with bookshelves. If you keep reading books in a poorly lit room, your eyes will go bad. This room doesn't even have windows, so there's no ventilation either. Being in a room with bad air also isn't good for your lungs. You're a man concerned with every petty little detail, I suppose. What Betty is doing and where Betty is are up to her. First thing, the air inside the Forbidden Archive is purified with mana, so it is purer than pure. In fact, for real? Damn, mana is crazy. That's why this room is so relaxing to be in. Man, I thought it strange. I was wondering why a room filled with Biko's carbon monoxide was so nice to be in. I did not quite understand, but I do know that what you said was something disgusting, I suppose. Unable to bear this worthless conversation, the one who raised her voice was Beatrice, sitting on a stepladder. Her face flushed red, and she stuck her finger out at Subaru, who was sitting boldly in the room. Every single day, why do you come out and poke your nose into Betty's business? In fact, this is not a place you can just come in to sit and kill time in, I suppose. This is the sacrosanctum unassailable Forbidden Archive. In fact, even if it's called the Forbidden Archive, the name's not got much weight to it if I can just waltz in, does it? Betty doesn't want you coming in, and yet you just managed to somehow waltz in on your own, I suppose. Beatrice, the same as always, exploded at Subaru, who tracked dirt into the room. Jumping from the stepladder as she did this, she haughtily raised her chin at Subaru, who was sitting cross-legged on the floor. On the sides of her head, her luxurious ringlets bouncing like springs were captivating. No matter how much I use door crossing, you find it right away like it was obvious. You're the first fellow who has ever tracked this much dirt into the Forbidden Archive, in fact. Boing boing, boing boing. Now which part of Betty are you looking at, and what are you playing at, I suppose? Listen to what I'm saying, in fact. Whoops. He quickly grabbed the partly read book Beatrice threw due to how angry she was. Beatrice, her face flushing red once again, glared at Subaru with her big wide pupils. Seeing this as a small puppy yapping, Subaru gave a small chuckle. What are you laughing at? You're a thoroughly irritating man, I suppose. My bad, my bad. But, come on, don't go throwing books after you've read them, put them back in their proper shelf. If you don't bother cleaning, the floor will be buried before long. You're 100 years too early to be trying to lecture Betty the librarian of the Forbidden Archive on how to handle books. In fact, well, I just witnessed this little librarian yeeting a book. Despite how much pride and awareness she had of herself as a librarian, her treatment towards books did not seem to be the kindest. Taking the book Subaru presented her, Beatrice quickly put it into the bookshelf next to her. The books arranged there had bindings and titles all over the place. It was a completely arbitrarily done job. Hey, what happened to your pride as a librarian? If you arbitrarily put them back like that, you will end up skipping a sequel and regret it. A long time ago, I had a pair of twins end up just a lone person that way. That advice seems to have an awfully personal feeling to it, but it is an unnecessary concern, I suppose. The Forbidden Archive is a revolutionary place that does not need to conform to your common sense. In fact, what do you mean? If you return the books to the shelf, a mechanism will later return the book to its designated spot, I suppose. The Forbidden Archive is awesome, or more like spooky. It was too bad for the prideful Beatrice, but Subaru's thoughts leaned more towards it being uncanny than awesome. Subaru was currently observing the shelf that Beatrice inserted the book into. Seriously? The book just goes back on its own? That's amazingly convenient, but seeing it happen feels nightmarish. Or more like, you don't need a librarian at that point. Why are you here? It seems like you can't hold a conversation with Betty unless you put her down for every little thing. In fact, this time they were doubts without any ill intent, but Beatrice still took them as his usual jesting. The girl then moved from Subaru's side and took out a book from the nearby bookshelf. There were many thick and lengthy books in the Forbidden Archive, so there was a bit of danger in the manner in which she was doing it. That said, for no reason in particular, he attempted to reach a hand out. Unnecessary concern, I suppose. As such, she gave her uncute response, making him laugh wryly. Velp, then, I guess I might as well leave for today. Resting her hips atop the stepladder, Beatrice entered reading mode on the open book on her lap. Once she was in this condition, her reactions would worsen during it. Subaru could also discern how to behave to not disturb her reading. This was the perfect timing to evacuate. As Subaru headed towards the exit of the Forbidden Archive, Beatrice didn't direct a single word at him. Subaru, remembering something, turned around towards the girl who consistently treated him cruelly. By the way, did you hear, Biko? I heard that tomorrow for 2 days, Roswell and Ram will be leaving the mansion for a while. I heard, in fact. But, that has nothing to do with Betty, I suppose. Even for something meant to be small talk, Beatrice was awfully curt. As if he couldn't take that attitude after all, Subaru cranked his head like he was pondering. You can't really mean they have nothing to do with you. It's the lord of the house and... Well, I can't really find how to put it to words properly, but couldn't you at least see him off? Richie might even jump from joy, you know? I cannot even imagine Roswell jumping for joy. In fact, I will say this as many times, but Betty has nothing to do with that, I suppose. Something like saying farewell. With her eyes cast down upon the book, Beatrice cut her words off there. Silence immediately fell upon the Forbidden Archive, and Subaru let his window for leaving the room go. The sound of page-turning stopped, and an uncomfortable atmosphere spread within the area. What now? thought Subaru, back to his own statement. It wasn't like he thought that far with that statement. Simply, he was aware of the fact that he had said something nosy about Beatrice and Roswell's relationship. But even then, Subaru. Take care. Farewell. Suddenly, Subaru's heart was caught by a voice he recalled from the back of his mind, trying not to think about it, trying not to remember it. That voice which he had been strongly made aware of reverberated in his skull. The parting which he had not been aware was a parting, the kind voice that had come from behind him. Subaru did not have a clue what to answer to that usual voice. Actually, you should show your face too when we see them off tomorrow. Who? Subaru's whisper, which had broken the silence, made Beatrice, who had her eyes down towards the book, sigh. Without lifting her face, simply raising her eyes towards Subaru, she shot a stiff glare at him. This is the third time, in fact. That has nothing to do with Betty, I suppose. You've got nothing to lose or anything. It's not like you have anything keeping you busy either, if you're just going to be shutting yourself in your room anyways. Then, why not poke your head out a little and, how insistent, in fact. As Subaru was hounding her, Beatrice flatly cut him off. First of all, whenever Betty is free she is here, I suppose. Something like anyways isn't going to make me give in fact. If you really must insist, then why not drag me out by force, I suppose? What's more, within this room there exists no manner in which you could win against Betty. In fact, there was a quiet but unflappable stubbornness within Beatrice's words. It was something that normally didn't show in her indignant retorts to Subaru, a deep-seated sleeping rage, which threatened to become a great flame if awoken. Understanding that, Subaru raised a white flag. I get it. Sorry for speaking out of turn. Good night. As he meekly withdrew, the pressure Beatrice was releasing faded. When he exited the room as well, the girl said nothing. TCH, she's so damn obstinate. The moment the door shut, he could somehow feel the space warp around it. When he attempted to open it again, the door, which had been connected to the forbidden archive just a moment ago, now returned to its place as a connector to an empty guest room. Beatrice's door crossing was a spatial magic which could connect the forbidden archive to whichever door she liked within the mansion. Since the right to decide on the door was down to Beatrice, it made it extremely complicated to get in contact with her. Though for some reason, that particular idiosyncrasy did not apply to Subaru's guesswork. But really, what was up with Biko's attitude just now? What's this? Subaru, what are you doing around here? Feeling uneasy from that last exchange, Subaru, who was frowning, heard a voice call out to him from the side. Turning around, the one he saw coming down from the landing of the stairs was Emilia, who had her silver hair bunned up. She approached Subaru, who was standing stock still in the hallway, and quizzically tilted her head with a slight smile. This way is to my room, you know. If you wanted to greet me before bed, you just did it a while ago. I was just passing by. Emilia Tan, fresh out of the bath. So cute. Yeah. Emilia took on Subaru's spontaneous praise with a completely habitual attitude. In actuality, the wryly laughing Emilia's cheeks and neckline were flushed and dyed in red, her long silver hair damp. Being under the same roof as the girl within his heart and seeing that side of her was the utmost blessing for a boy. Subaru, you're staring and breathing very hard. Is something wrong? Do I look weird? No, the weird one here would be me, actually. Emilia Tan's loveliness is always making me lose my mind so. Wait, we're digressing again. That's not it, you look just fine. Putting the jokes and nonsense to the side, Subaru moved his face closer to Emilia's puzzled face. She smelled nice. But that's not the problem here. It's tempting to just continue to stand here and talk with Emilia Tan too, but I kinda need to ask something from you. It's a little late right now, but could you lend me Puck? Puck, pressing a finger against her cheek, Emilia's eyes opened wide at the sudden request. It's already his bedtime, but I think he'll come out if I call for him. But what do you need from Puck? I get it. Sleeping alone is lonely after all. If that's what made you convinced, then it's like I'm incredibly pathetic, isn't it? That's not it. I have something I want to discuss with Biko actually. If Emilia Tan could also join in, it'd be a real help. With Beatrice, Emilia's eyes opened wider and wider, but all Subaru gave her was a devilish laugh. That face was practically like the smile a naughty brat would make as he announced his prank. I'm thinking of teaching a little thing or two to that shut-in.
Re-Zero, Side Story, Librarian Beatrice's Reluctant Promise Chapter 3.
The next day, Subaru showed his face in the Forbidden Archive once it was past noon. Just as always, Beatrice, who was sitting on the step-ladder, didn't welcome Subaru. On top of that whole thing last night, her hiding her face with the book today had a much more stubborn atmosphere to her than usual as well. Yo, Biko. Roasty and Ram set out already. You didn't go see them off at all, so he cried so much his clown makeup fell off. In that case, it was worth it for Betty to not go see him off, in fact. If all you wanted was to come and talk about such meaningless things, then hurry out, I suppose. Shooing away, like she was trying to wave off a bug with her hands, Beatrice waved her arm. Left with no angle of approach, he scratched his head. Subaru then nodded with an, "All right, Biko, let's continue our conversation from yesterday for a bit." "Okay? All right, thank you, you just keep going like the self-centered guy you are, in fact. Don't just do whatever you want, I suppose, then that self-centeredness, I'll just go ahead and exploit it to its limit. Let's resume our talk about seeing them off. If saying farewell is too much, then how about saying welcome back? How about nothing? You have no room for argument, in fact. I dislike what I dislike, thus I refuse, I suppose. I don't understand why you are so obsessed with that, in fact. Why? Well, you see, because it's something very important." At Beatrice's questioning, Subaru crossed his arms and nodded repeatedly. Ever since they started this back and forth yesterday, Subaru had gone over these questions by himself. The conclusion he came to from that was a little hard to put into words. It might be an exaggeration, but you must say the things you have to say when you have to say them. Otherwise you might end up regretting it. You also must have had moments where you thought, "Oh no, I messed up." That has never happened to Betty, I suppose. Beatrice averted her gaze, half-heartedly denying Subaru's words. From her attitude, Subaru had earned a response, and now was the time to press on. "The fact you've never had that happen must be because you're a shut-in. Can't help you there, that term, it is unusually irritating, so stop it, in fact. It just feels like it's unreasonably putting down Betty's existence, I suppose. Anger that strikes the bullseye is the proof of an awakening from the bottom of your heart. I keep telling you every time that I have no idea what your words mean." Subaru, who was pointing with his finger, had Beatrice making a fed-up face at him. She stuck a finger into her own hair rolls, and bounced them up and down like a spring. "Why don't you hurry up, and tell me what it is you want to say, I suppose? Just quickly say what you want to say, and get lost from the Forbidden Archive, in fact." "Biko, won't you make a bet with me?" "A bet?" "Yes, a bet. Let's have a little contest." At the abrupt, strange proposal, Beatrice, her face looking like she had no idea what she just got told, knitted her brows. She stared fixedly at Subaru, in a manner full of suspicion. "A bet? What are you talking about all of a sudden, I suppose? I have no reason to take that. In fact, if you judge things on whether they're necessary or unnecessary, you'll become a boring adult. I don't think becoming an adult with no chill like Roswell is the best of ideas, either. I will concede that point to you, I suppose." Their opinion aligned when it came to the currently absent lord of the mansion. Leaving beside Roswell, whom he just used as a simple stepping stone to gain common understanding, Subaru raised a finger as he said, "So that's why, to avoid becoming boring adults, let's play and make a little bet between us. It's our special right as kids, you and me, to be able to get away with playing with fire and have it be just a funny story later. No idea what that bet could be, but what does Betty gain from winning it? In fact, shrewd one, aren't you? Can I take it that you're feeling like participating if you've got interest in the prize?" Beatrice, who was narrowing her eyes, didn't say anything. Simply, the fact that she didn't say any words of refusal was a gain. Towards her, Subaru stretched out his right hand. Beatrice's face was suspicious, however. "You're called, jump out, Naya 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 Nyan. In accordance with Subaru's call, a cheerful voice accompanied an overflowing light on his hand. The light soon shaped into the silhouette of a cat. Not a portable cat, mind you, but the cat spirit, Puck, manifested right in front of Beatrice. While the kitty cleaned its face, those round black pupils looked at her mischievously. It's a request from Leah, and I also have an opinion about this, so I'll cooperate. Subaru, you've got quite the rough handle on cats, having to ask a cat for help, and it turns out the cat's actually really helpful, many such cases. In terms of both actual strength and amicability, he ended up turning to Puck relatively a lot. This time as well, the foundation of this plan was based on Puck, and the effect was as could be observed. Poor Nyacha is so cute and fluffy today as well. You're just so dreamy to Betty, I suppose. As expected, Puck appearing on top of his hand was a KO for Beatrice. Her cheeks flushing, Subaru laughed bitterly at the sight of the girl gazing at the kitty with the eyes of a maiden. Your patterns are so predictable, it's way too plain, or so I'd like to complain, but if you do win this bet, you will earn the right to fluff Puck for a day. I've obtained the consent of both the actual person and their guardian. To correct you, I'm actually Leah's guardian. Don't get that part wrong. His tail standing straight up, Puck reminded them of one important aspect. With that said, Beatrice nodded her head continuously at Subaru's proposal, and not too shabby of a recompense. In fact, it seems you have just a bit of the right idea, I suppose. I'm incredibly concerned about whether you might get deceived by some bad men in the future. Did I hear some unnecessary concern just now? In fact, just your imagination. Gaslighting isn't real. So, in the case that I win, it'll be obligatory for you to give farewells and greetings. And not just to Roswell, but everyone in the mansion, too. At the conditions Subaru outlined, Beatrice's expression suddenly changed. Of course, from how the conversation had been going, she must have imagined this. The color of surprise in the girl's eyes was deep. I don't mean for this to apply to something like going shopping at the village. But, similarly to the other day, at the very least show your face to say farewells and greetings with everybody else. There's no need to go out of your way to have an unpleasant attitude, right? I really do not understand why you're obsessing so much with that, I suppose. Though she stared at Puck as if in thought, Beatrice seemed to resign herself right away. The girl gracefully went down to the ground from the stepladder, and walked forward towards Subaru. Let me hear the details of the bet. In fact, then, that means you'll take the loss conditions? That is if I lose, I suppose. Go on, tell me. In fact, as if peeved by the fact she was going along with Subaru's suggestion, Beatrice pursed her lips as if displeased. Before she changed her mind, Subaru turned only his head towards the door behind him. The rules are simple, it's tag. No, double tag, I guess. Oni chase? A game you split the roles of a person and an Oni, and have the Oni chase the person, I suppose. That's right, that's exactly it. However, the rules are a little bit different this time. You'll also be playing the role of the chased this time, while inside the mansion. Subaru continued explaining with basically, as Beatrice had a question mark floating atop her head. Right now, Emilia Tan is running around the mansion. The one you are tasked to chase down and catch is the runner Emilia Tan. However, if you were simply chasing after Emilia Tan, it wouldn't be that fun. Wait, no, if I had to do that, that'd actually be a blast. Subaru, you're digressing, my bad. So then, you chase after the runner Emilia, and you'll also be running from someone trying to catch you. If you manage to catch Emilia Tan, you will win. On the other hand, however, if you get caught before catching Emilia Tan, you will lose. That is double tag. With a slight adjustment from Puck, Subaru finished explaining the description of the contest. Beatrice, having heard that, scrunched up her brow and fiddled with her own ringlets. The conditions are limited to just inside the mansion? What about the garden or outside the gate? In fact, the garden is fair game, but outside the gates is not. Also, door crossing and magic are both forbidden. Since teleporting and tag would be way too overpowered, and you can't go injuring people with magic, humph, that's too big a handicap for Betty, I suppose. Without magic, how will I catch her? In fact, Why don't you use your head for that one? Try hiding in the shadows, or circling around her. Those same conditions apply to Emilia Tan, so the only thing that will decide victory is underhandedness. If that explanation was meant to give me spirit, then something must be wrong with you, I suppose. Though weary, Beatrice was also seriously thinking about this contest. With door crossing sealed, and without magic either, Beatrice was no more than a simple little girl. Even with the same condition, Emilia had too much physical ability. However, in a contest of underhandedness, Emilia was certainly the weakest one in the mansion. The reason was her being too honest, but even then, with these rules for tag, Beatrice had enough chances. Fine, in fact. I am in, I suppose. However, the younger of the twins is forbidden from participating. In fact, you noticed? It was obvious, I suppose. Even Betty can see that the physical strength of the Oni race is unbeatable without magic. I must have you allow me to properly draw that one line of precaution, I suppose. Exposing Subaru's craftiness, Beatrice felt proud in crushing that countermeasure of his. If he denied this condition, Beatrice would reject the contest itself. In the first place, Beatrice's argument was solid. Subaru had no choice but to stop Rem from participating. I will count to 100 after you leave, then begin chasing you. Puck will remain in the Forbidden Archive, so if you try to cheat using door crossing, we will know immediately. Don't look down on me. In fact, something so shameless is not something I would do, I suppose. Confirming their conditions, Beatrice handed Puck to Subaru, who had the kitty he received transmit the fact that the bet was a success to Emilia. All right. Leah is also raring to go, it seems. She started running around the mansion. Puck informed them that the conditions had been prepared with a face that made him look like he was about to yawn. In accordance with that, Subaru beckoned Beatrice, and the girl gallantly headed for the door with her skirt fluttering. I will end this quickly, so that I may enjoy my tryst with Naicha. In fact, whichever plan could she have made? Beatrice exited the Forbidden Archive with a wave of her hand. Seeing her off, Subaru began to count numbers out loud. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Their literal Oni card called Rem now out of the picture, it seemed Beatrice felt like she had won. However, if she thought she'd beaten Subaru in underhandedness, unfortunately for her, she was also honest to the point that it'd be easier to count her from the weaker side.
Re-Zero, Side Story, Librarian Beatrice's Reluctant Promise Chapter 4.
The moment she exited door crossing, Beatrice confirmed she was standing in front of the dining hall. Beatrice had the right to choose where it transfers to. The one who chose this exit point was herself. She had confidence as well, that for the sake of her plan, starting here was optimal. Well then, let's go on, start searching, and finish this up swiftly, I suppose. Her indisposed attitude from before starting was nowhere to be seen. When it came down to the game itself, Beatrice was serious. Immediately, she began her exploration of the mansion in search of her target, Emilia. However, right before that, she raised her head at the presence of a person. At the end of the hallway was a blue-haired girl, a maid who originally was meant to be her strongest rival, the younger of the twins, Rem. Beatrice Summer, it seems you accepted the challenge, as you can see, in fact. But I didn't acknowledge your participation, I suppose. That man's trickery doesn't work on Betty, in fact. He should be heartbroken about his plans being foiled right about now, I suppose. Yes, as expected of Beatrice Summer, you have quite the discerning eye. It would seem you saw through everything Rem was instructed by Subaru to do. Rem's usual expression was mixed with a bit of despondency as she lowered her head. Previously, she wasn't a girl who would show these kinds of expressions. Whose influence this was from, went without saying. That was unpleasant, and as such, Beatrice snickered. If you've learned your lesson, you should stop taking that man's help. In fact, it is pointless, I suppose. I see then. If Beatrice Summer wins this bet, then I will take it into consideration. But I really do think Subaru-kun is amazing. A smile surfacing to her face, Rem praised the foolish Subaru who had gotten his plans foiled. Remembering the sense of unease in her smiling posture, Beatrice raised her eyebrows. It was right after that, Ta-da! Ta-da-da! Ta-da-da-da-da! Voices suddenly resounded across the mansion along with the sound of doors bursting open one after the other. That surprise attack made Beatrice's shoulders jump. She turned around, and the ones who came tumbling out of those open doors were several children she didn't have any recollection of. Who are they? They're children who live in the nearby Alam village. They're very close with Subaru-kun, and readily agree to cooperate with today as well. Subaru-kun is virtuous as always. It's not the time to be saying that, in fact. Why would you just let human children into the mansion? We received proper permission from Roswell-sama before he left. The rooms which would pose an issue if entered have been closed off. As such, Beatrice-sama, please also be careful so as to not enter the third floor of the main wing, as well as the personal rooms, changing room, and treasury. Rem's smoothly appending warnings and precautions left Beatrice speechless. The children, finding the frozen Beatrice, immediately pointed their fingers at her. That's the girl Subaru talked about. The shut-in. Her dress is cute. Thus, confirming their prey, they advanced as a group towards Beatrice. Overwhelmed by their intensity, Beatrice ran to the opposite side of the hallway in a panic. By the way, those children are also in it for Beatrice-sama. Do your best running, so as to not get caught, being whispered that by Rem, who was running parallel to her. Beatrice's face became beet red. He was far more devious than Betty had imagined, I suppose. Without alluding to the number of it's that would be chasing Beatrice, he let her see him get frustrated at Rem being seen through, pretending that his cards had been taken away, then deployed the children. With just how much drive had he engaged his guiles for such a trivial bet? Go there? Catch her. Strip her bare. While running from the children who were loudly chasing after her, Beatrice continued to single-mindedly lay insults on Subaru, who was looking at her with wide nostrils. Within her head, that bastard will not get away with this, in fact.
Re-Zero, Side Story, Librarian Beatrice's Reluctant Promise Chapter 5.
And after much of that, Beatrice's double tag reached a fever pitch. Ah. It's Beatrice. I gotta run. I found you, I suppose. You're not getting away. In fact, finding Emilia in the West Wing and chasing her, the difference in nimbleness and stride left her in the dust in the blink of an eye. However, her running was too honest, so if she just circled around her, there she is. Found her. My wife. Those kiddos are here, I suppose. Just give it up already. In fact, however, obstructed by the children who came jumping from her flanks, Beatrice had to roll over and escape. If she overextended and got caught, it'd all be for nothing. In addition, the stamina of those children knew no bounds. They were no geniuses, but in the purest of senses their energeticness was a menace. They were a formidable enemy, and the brats aren't the only issue, I suppose, the running Emilia, and the hindering children. Although they were unpredictable in nature, in tag, they had a weakness called honesty. Rather the problem was, that bastard has still not shown up even once. In fact, the one who offered the bet, Subaru, had yet to come out from the forbidden archive to tag Beatrice. Beatrice hadn't caught sight of that wicked form of his even once. After all, even Beatrice didn't think she could handle Subaru as easily as the children. Besides losing to him in speed, his eccentric imaginings wouldn't lose to the children, either. With just the fact that he crossed her when explaining the rules, Beatrice's wariness towards Subaru had reached unprecedented levels. On one hand, she wanted him to come at her, but on the other hand, she didn't want him to come at her. The moment she thought like that, her mind had already finally lost, and Beatrice, who was concentrating to her utmost, did not realize that. Going down the stairs in one jump, her skirt fluttered as she made contact with the ground. She firmly stepped onto the rug and broke into a sprint, crossing the passage from the West Wing to return to the main wing. And, no, I mustn't. Emilia, who just happened to poke her head out of the room ahead, was noticed by Beatrice and began running away. Catching that dancing silver hair, Beatrice sped up, determined to not let her escape. You won't escape anymore, I suppose. Peacefully surrender yourself. In fact, no. I'm having so much fun. I wanna play more. I'll put in effort. I'm telling you to not put any effort in, I suppose. Both of them ran while having their disparaging exchange. As they did so, the sound of their voices was picked up by the children, who appeared from further behind Beatrice. There. Finally. Spotted. Victory couldn't be more obnoxious. In fact, oblivious of what Beatrice meant, the children fiercely pursued her, with Emilia at the head, Beatrice in the middle, and the children chasing her tail. It could be anyone's game. In this crystallization of double tag, Emilia didn't run upstairs, but down instead. She jumped all the way down the stairs from the second to first floor, heading not to the east wing, but to the very center of the mansion. That's it, I suppose. If she turned just her head around, she'd see that the children at her rear were a fair distance away. The hunter Beatrice was just letting out a victory yell over her catching the rabbit before her eyes, before they caught up to her. Her eyes darting side to side as she looked around, Emilia thought about where she should run. As if to capitalize on that expression, Beatrice took a chance to lead Emilia towards that place, to where she had placed a trap in the center of the main wing. Wait, in fact. I won't let you escape to the dining hall, I suppose. The dining hall, so honest. If there was any reason for Emilia's defeat, that reason would indeed have to be that personality of hers. At Beatrice's yelling, Emilia reflexively thought the dining hall was her means of escape. That honesty of hers made Beatrice, who took advantage of it, feel anxious. That said, a game was a game. And so long as they were caught in a trap, a rabbit's fate was decided. This is, throwing the dining hall door open, Emilia, who had jumped into the room, could be heard making a dismayed voice. The dining hall she jumped into was the room that was initially connected to the Forbidden Archive with door crossing. In other words, since she hadn't refreshed door crossing, the door to the dining hall was still connected to the Forbidden Archive. Aside from being cornered in the Forbidden Archive, Emilia had truly stopped her feet at the unexpected sight. Bringing down an unmoving prey in your own familiar territory, for a hunter, was a cinch. It would seem, Beatrice was a step. 10 steps ahead. In fact, confirming her victory, Beatrice made a sharp turn and jumped straight into the dining hall into the Forbidden Archive. Then her hand reached for the back of Emilia, who had stopped in surprise, and, welcome, wah! The arms that came from the side quickly nabbed Beatrice's body. Held by both arms from behind, Beatrice's legs hung in the air. Turning around as if wondering what had happened, she locked eyes with the devilishly smiling Subaru. Match over. Sorry, but, as you can see, this is Subaru's win, Betty. Looking at Beatrice, who was being held up, Puck coldly announced that, sitting upon the stepladder, off to the side, Emilia had a slightly bitter smile, and the children who caught up began high-fiving each other right outside the room, leaving Beatrice dumbfounded. I told you, didn't I? Beatrice, adjusting his hold on the wordless Beatrice, Subaru looked at the girl face to face, that this was a contest of underhandedness. Did you think you could beat me? That smile irritating her, Beatrice drove her knee into Subaru's solar plexus.
Re-Zero, Side Story, Librarian Beatrice's Reluctant Promise Chapter 6.
From the start, I could imagine you'd use the Forbidden Archive to entrap Emilia. After all, you have a bit of a habit of using door crossing to play with people. Grr, I suppose. Hearing the aftermatch brief, Beatrice growled in frustration. Finding satisfaction in that vexed face, Subaru rubbed his gouged solar plexus. Subaru's strategy regarding double tag was simple. First, the trap set for the role of the it who would chase Beatrice. The plan was to let her become aware of Rem's existence beforehand, then throw the reinforcements called children at Beatrice, who was in over her head. With that measure in place, Beatrice's leeway would be taken away, and with the plan to bait her using Emilia, they'd deal the decisive blow. I told Emilia your starting point and I had her run into the Forbidden Archive at the so-called critical moment. All that was left was getting myself in position in the Forbidden Archive. The moment the hunter is about to hunt their prey, is when the real opening appears. Beatrice had no words of objection against the proud Subaru's art of war. Since she'd completely danced on top of Subaru's palm, she'd seem like a sore loser no matter what she said. Hugging her knees on top of the stepladder, She was putting her all into glaring at Subaru, but man, what a goof that was. What was that? What was it you said? That Biko was 1 step, 10 steps ahead. Unfortunately for you, I was 11 steps ahead. Cut it out, you're getting quite in over your head, I suppose. Babmf. Unable to take his boasting anymore, Beatrice's rage exploded, blowing him away with a shockwave. Beatrice snorted at Subaru, who'd hit the wall and bounced. I acknowledge your underhandedness, but I have no obligation to endure ridicule, in fact. In the first place, Betty didn't even want to join in on this bet, I suppose. That was, you want to pretend this contest you took part in didn't happen. Well, isn't that too good for you? Even Puck would get angry and saddened. He'd say, I don't remember raising you like that, you're a really annoying guy. In fact, Beatrice, who was trying to throw the entire match out, clicked her tongue at Subaru's impression. However, seeing that stubborn profile, Subaru sighed. Well, if you absolutely must refuse, then I guess I won't avoid reconsidering. How lucky I am, I suppose, since you're being childish and all. I also feel a little like I thoroughly destroyed you too hard by going in fully prepared. You just danced so beautifully on the palm of my hand that I accidentally, you too, haven't been made to dance enough with Betty's magic power. In fact, being honest with his own feelings and communicating them a bit too honestly, Subaru made Beatrice discontent. However, there was some honesty to his feelings there. Of course though, he didn't think the bet itself was a mistake. A part of it is that I can't really force you, you know? While I think I could also make you do it even if you're unwilling, it's kinda like forcing you to do it is a little different from my original intentions. You should have said that from the start, I suppose. What you wanted to do, in fact, it's a mystery even to me. But, I feel like I saw what I wanted to see today with the challenge as a pretext. Seeing you run around all energetically like that, humph. While sitting cross-legged on the floor, Subaru laughed at Beatrice as she pouted. You might have been reluctant, but I had fun. I think Emilia Tan and the kiddos from the village did too. That's not too bad as a compromise. Feels like Betty got all the short ends of every stick, I suppose. That is that and this is this. Just think of it as a lost cause and give up. After saying that to the sulking Beatrice, Subaru stood up and headed towards the door of the Forbidden Archive. They had thoroughly turned the mansion into a playground. As such, like he'd promised Roswell, he had to return the mansion to how it was before, or else the scary scolding of Ram awaited him. Biko. Just before exiting the room, Subaru turned to Beatrice. She didn't reply. However, Beatrice gave Subaru a glare so harsh it hurt. Let's play again sometime. Neither affirmation nor denial. None of those actions occurred before Subaru closed the doors. Door crossing activated, and Subaru was transferred to the entrance to the dining hall. Both Emilia and Rem were standing right there as Subaru raised both of his hands with a dejected face. Hey, good work there. Yes, Subaru-kun did good work as well. Sorry for troubling you so much, Rem. Like having to deal with the kiddos and stuff. Sorry I pushed that onto you. They're annoying and won't listen to anyone, right? That's not the case at all. All of them were very nice and obedient. I gave them some fried snacks as gifts before returning them to the village, but they said they wanted to come again. So they treat you way different from me? They acted completely insolent to Subaru, but meek with Rem it seemed. Next time, he'd need to cross-examine while doing their daily radio calisthenics. He also had to give them his gratitude for their cooperation as well. So then, were you able to talk with Beatrice properly? She wasn't mad? Subaru, who was making a sour face at the attitudes of the children, had Emilia tilt her neck at him in a puzzled manner as if wanting to know more. Her gaze, fixed on the dining hall doors, focused on the forbidden archive beyond them. For the time being, it seems like she admitted to the results of the match, but seems like the result of the bet is in a delicate spot. I also considered that kind of secondary as well. Is that so? Then, what did you do the game of tag for? Well, that was to play. I thought to show that unhealthy shut-in little girl about the fun of running around with you all together with kids your age. In that sense, I think it went well. Subaru, winking playfully, made Emilia make a bit of a surprised face. But, soon enough, She sighed in a dumbfounded manner and smiled. Yes, that's right. Beatrice surely also had fun. After all, I had tunes of fun, that's what's most important. So then, all that's left is to do the cleanup after the festival. Fascinated by Emilia's smile, Subaru scratched his cheek, as if to hide his embarrassment. Doing so, Rem pulled lightly on Subaru's sleeve. The cleanup is important, but first let's have a short rest. Roswell Summer and Nay Summer's return is tomorrow night, after all. There is still plenty of time. Right, Rem prepared some fried snacks. Let's have a bit of tea time, and do the cleanup after that. The truth is that I would also have liked to invite Beatrice though. She'd probably decline, I guess. In that case, I'll have Puck bring her over. Then we'd be even. Her fouled humor might get a little better if Puck entertained her. But it's hard to think that Emilia's proposal had that kind of selfish motive. So then, Subaru-kun, let's go. Yeah, let's go. I get it. We also shouldn't cut corners from being in a rush and end up scolded by Ram. The reason behind their somewhat high spirits was perhaps because this day was meaningful to them both. If that was the case, it was worth it for Subaru to have worked his guiles. It'd be nice if you could also think the same. While thinking of the girl who wasn't here, Subaru muttered that to himself. Then, the dining hall doors, which were letting out a sweet fragrance, gently opened.
Re-Zero, Side Story, Librarian Beatrice's Reluctant Promise Chapter 7.
By the time they finished the cleanup after the game of tag, around a whole day had passed when the master of the mansion's return was close at hand. Those brats, they did go at it relentlessly, didn't they? It's good they did not break anything. Since we did gather everything that could be broken by the children in one place beforehand. Good work you two. I'm sorry I could only help you until halfway through. Subaru, who was rolling his shoulders, and the smiling Rem next to him, had both come to the entrance hall. While doing so, Emilia, who was coming down from the stairs, reunited with the pair, joining them as they stood in the hall. But even then, having even Emilia Tan coming to welcome him, just how blessed can Richie get, really? But, after hearing what Subaru said yesterday, I thought that it's something important to do. While I didn't really think about it that hard before, I thought from now on I wanted to do it earnestly. It's not something you have to put that much effort and thought into, so do it in moderation, okay? Gripping her fist, the awfully spirited Emilia gave a wry laugh. Her honest and serious side was too quickly affected by a little idealism. It happened as they were having their usual exchange. Suddenly, the sound of someone's footsteps entered the ears of all three of them. They sounded small, and even somewhat hesitant. When the three of them realized their origin, their eyes went wide in surprise, and each of them laughed. The person behind the footsteps approached the three of them without saying a word, then spilled out a defeated sigh. Without touching on the reason at all, the three of them accepted the small silhouette as a fourth member. No one said anything about the silhouette joining in. They all simply naturally understood that things were as they should be. Time quietly passed. Eventually, the entrance doors opened up with talking voices. "Welcome back." Thus, the three cheerful voices overlapped with a single more reserved voice, and greeted the lord of the manor.